It's not a betrayal. It might be bad timing, bad transfer policy, Trent being about only the money he can make at Madrid, or genuinely being bored and looking for a new challenge. But it is not a betrayal. Trent has been at Liverpool since he was 6 years old. We all know this. He's won everything. He's won the lot as we sing. A 26-year-old wants to leave the place where he's won everything, he's lived his entire life, where the weather can be somewhat suspect, at least in comparison, in a small city by European standards, and that's no shots fired. I live in a relatively small city in the United States myself, and go to one of the biggest clubs in Europe, really one of the biggest clubs in the world, in the third largest city in Europe, to make really big money. Why are we surprised by this? Some might say he owed it to the club, his boyhood club, to sign an extension so that Liverpool could sell him for something to Real Madrid. And I think it would be completely fair if Trent and his advisors would say two different things. One, why didn't you sign me to that extension before, say, the summer of 2024? Really, well before that. And two, what happens if Madrid decides, no, we don't want to pay that fee? Let's dissect these 2 points. Allowing Liverpool to recoup some of the money through his leaving by signing an extension would essentially mean he's left money on the table by staying at Liverpool this long. Because when you sign an extension, you want a raise. But with the raise he could have gotten in the past from Liverpool, who are not owned by an oil state and have, some restrictions as to what they pay players, come close to what Madrid is offering him now by getting him on a free. If you let a player get to 1 year left on their contract, they're going to get calls from other clubs, especially clubs like Real Madrid. This is kind of their thing. They don't want to pay transfer fees if they can avoid it. They would rather just give you, the player, all of the money in the wage budget. And the second point, it's great to say, hey, Trent, we'll sign you to an extension, but we promise we will sell you to Madrid if they come in to pay a fee. So from the player's perspective, what if Madrid say, no, we're not going to pay a fee? As the player, you're now stuck at Liverpool. You've signed your extension, you've gotten a bit of a raise, but you've missed out on your big money move. You've missed out on moving to a new culture where you want to go play with your friend Jude Bellingham and all that good stuff. And Madrid go tap up another player and get them on a free, and you're stuck in Liverpool. The only way then, if you're Trent, you can resolve that situation is to make a big stink in the media and sit out of training and not be in games and refuse to come on, and now suddenly you're the bad guy. Let's rewind to the summer of 2024, not that long ago, because at the end of the day, Trent and the other big extensions that happened this season should have been handled well before the summer. In the summer of 2024, Liverpool had just lost their beloved coach that brought them back to their rightful perch, if you will. Yeah? Remember this guy? They're signing a new coach that they hope will do well. And they had 3 major stars coming up for renewal all at the same time. I have to imagine the club went to Arne Slot, who's coming into the situation, and they go, hey, we've kind of had some gaffes in our transfer policy, and Mo Salah, Virgil van Dijk, and Trent are all up for renewal, or they're going to leave on a free. Which of those would you like to prioritize? Because, by the way, we may not be able to sign all 3 to extensions. It wouldn't surprise me in that situation if Slot put Trent third. It kind of doesn't matter at this point if you would put Salah first or second and Virgil first or second. I think it was probably Salah, Virgil, and Trent. But it also wouldn't surprise me that Trent was, firmly in third on the extension list. Maybe it is how Arne Slot envisions using a right back in his system. Maybe it's he thinks a replacement can be found in the future with enough time, not in a rush where you go, oh my gosh, it's the summer, I just got here and we're selling Trent. Right? And maybe he ends up being right because Frimpong is joining. Now, to be fair, we haven't seen him perform on the pitch in the red of Liverpool. Maybe it is Trent's production, which has dropped, and more on that in a second. And maybe it's Trent and his advisors made it extremely clear that He didn't want to sign an extension, or he didn't want to sign a small extension, or he required so much money that an extension wasn't possible to stay within the wage structure within the club. Essentially, hey guys, love you, but like I'm ready to move on and make a much larger move to Madrid. And if your slots coming into this situation, or maybe the club hierarchy and the executives and all that kind of stuff, you go, we just lost Klopp, so we're not sure how this season's going to pan out. Let's not lose Klopp and Trent. That's a lot of emotion to impact the dressing room and the dynamics. Maybe he sees a player that, hey, I think I can work with Trent. I think he can make a difference for us this season. And if we lose him on a free, we lose him on a free. We'll just replace him next year. At the end of the day, the club has a transfer policy gap where it should never have been those three players coming up for renewal all at the same time. Or I should say, instead of coming up for renewal, their contracts all coming to an end at the end of the same season without any of them having been extended before the summer before. Maybe it was just inevitable that someone was leaving, and Trent made it clear he was more than happy for it to be him. Back to Trent's production, because it has dropped, and I think somewhat significantly. Now, you could argue that's how he's been utilized in the tactic, both with Arne Slot and also with Klopp, because the tactic did not stay static under Klopp. It transitioned over the years. He's no longer bombing down the wing, overlapping Mo Salah, and on the other side, Andy Robertson is overlapping Sadio Mane, and they're just pinging in cross after cross after cross after cross. Those seasons where he was getting 12 assists, 13 assists, or lots of goal contributions, it has gone down. In the 2021 and to 2022 season, he had 12.0 expected assists, and it has dropped every year since. The season after, it dropped to 11.5. The year after that, in 23-24, it dropped to 7.2 and just 6.7 expected assists this season. Now, granted, he's had more injuries, he's missed more time, and even if you look at it on a per 90 basis, it is still dropped from that first season of 0.38 assists per 90 minutes to just 0.26 this season. So ignore the number of minutes that he's playing, the number of games that he's playing, and the injuries. His production has dropped. You're talking 0.12 of 0.38 is about a third. Is that all on the tactical changes that he experienced both under Klopp and Slot, where he's coming more inside versus going down the wings? Is it that he feels like he's done everything he wants to do and he's ready to leave and he maybe doesn't care as much and he kind of jogs sometimes? Maybe it's a mix of both. Who knows? One last thing to consider is how much do players owe their clubs anything besides their performance? Clearly, you're supposed to perform. You're being paid extraordinarily well by global standards, regardless of the league that you're playing in, at least in, say, the top 10 leagues in Europe. So you owe your club performance because you signed an employment contract. But it's up to the club and the player to look after their own interests. So the club doesn't want to pay as much in wages, and they don't want to pay as much in transfer fees. And the player wants to earn as much money as possible because their career will not be 40 years long. Where I think this gets complicated is when it's, oh, but I love the club, and the things that players say because they're supposed to say them, even if they may have meant them in the past, at the end of the day, it comes down to a business decision. Yes, Trent has been at Liverpool since he was 6 years old, and that's very romantic. But at the end of the day, the odds that he was going to be a one-club man were essentially zero because of his talent level. The club could have chosen to pay him Real Madrid level money and said, Trent, we don't care if you go move to Madrid. We'll fly you back every week for training, and you can live there and live your life in the off season and do all the great things, but we'll pay you. But that has a knock-on effect to the rest of the squad in terms of what can you pay those players. And if Trent's getting paid that much, well, I want you get that situation. And from the player standpoint, yes, I'm willing to take a contract several years ago to stay at my boyhood club. And yes, we've done amazing things and won everything, but it's time for me to make my real serious money here. And it's clear that Madrid are going to pay Trent more than Liverpool were paying him. So both sides are looking after their best interests, and at the end of the day, it is a business transaction. You pay me to do work, I do work. You don't want to pay me as much as some other employer will potentially pay me. That's going to strip out some of the romanticism here, and again, it's not like Trent didn't do anything for Liverpool. He's won the lot, right? And it's completely fair to say maybe both sides could have handled this a lot better. Again, let's say that an extension was never going to happen because Trent was just not interested in signing one. Both the club and Trent, I think, probably come out looking a little bit better if they say 18 months into it or 12 months left on the contract, hey, this can be my last season. Let's make it a great one. But instead, it was this long, drawn out process. Well, okay, we got Arne Slot. Oh, we're doing well in the league. Maybe Trent will stay. Maybe he won't. Maybe he will. And there's all these rumors. And like leaving it out of the media might have been maybe more comfortable from an interview question standpoint or something like that. But if everybody in the club knew it was highly unlikely that Trent was staying after the end of this season, then I think both parties might have been better served to just have come out and said that because it gives everybody, fans, interviewers, whatever, more time to process that information. And we can just focus on winning the league. Which, by the way, let's just remember Liverpool just won the league by quite the margin. So let's not let this dampen our spirits, shall we? But fans saying that Trent has betrayed the club, betrayed is such a harsh word. Ignore the fact that Liverpool had chances prior to the summer of 2024 or the season of 24-25 to sign Trent to an extension on a long-term deal. And I think it's more likely a genuine desire for change, for a bigger city, a bigger market, to become a global star. And I can't really fault him for that. He's 26 years old. Like, he's entering the prime of his career, which is maybe hard to hear when you go, but he was getting 12, 13 assists a season under Klopp. It's like, yeah, but he was like 22 when those things were happening. Now he's 26, and he's going, I've only got like probably one major move in me, and I want it to be to Madrid, where I can make an enormous amount of money and live in the third largest city in Europe. I think it's also a bit of bad timing with Klopp leaving and these contracts all coming up for potential extension or renewal all at the same time. I can't fault Trent for wanting to get paid as much money as humanly possible in a different culture, in a different climate, in the third largest city in Europe. Can you?